Friend, I am so very happy to have you here today. Thank you so much for joining me. Um, Before we start our conversation together, I feel like it's important for the folks to know about all the incredible things Ms. Barbara Yebuga does. So how do you feel about me doing a quick little intro about you right now?
Go for it. I'm not
Okay.
gonna hold you back. Go for it.
Okay. So, folks, my amazing friend right here, Ms. Barbara Yebuga, is an educator, digital content creator, column writer, and now she is adding author to her multi-hyphenated title. Her book, which I have, voila, here, is a is a collection of short stories featuring significant heroes who have brought about positive change while challenging systemic barriers. Her book is part of Pearson's publishing digital library, Sparks. Over 15,000 students across the Greater Toronto Area have experienced Barbara's engaging literacy workshops, where she has worked with over 8 public and private school boards. That's already a lot, Barbara. I don't know if the folks can handle all this, you know. Also, as a diversity, equity, and inclusion communications consultant, she has worked with national and international leading companies in staffing and recruitment, financial services, education, and media. When it comes to her guiding principles, Barbara lives by 2 philosophies. 1, be hard on problems and soft on people. A lesson given to her by her father. I love this one. And 2, her favorite Brene Brown quote, we're here to get it right, not be right. I feel like we could do a whole segment just on these 2 quotes. But because today I really want to focus on this incredible book that you have written. Okay. Let's start off with, tell us why you wrote the book.
Why did I write the book? First of all, thank you so much for the warm welcome. I appreciate you so much. You know this. I wrote the book because, simply put, I saw a lot of gaps in our curriculum, the Canadian school curriculum. And it bothered me. And I wanted to do something about it. And I think it's really important that we tell a more open version of history and really give a more broader scope. And I think it's so imperative for our students, for educators, that we understand that. And it bothered me as I was even discovering the stories in the book. Why is it that for certain industries, there's kind of an idea of what a certain industry or the folks in industry looks like? For example, tech, there's this idea that it hasn't been so diverse, and I know they've made a lot of strides. But I was wondering, why do we know about the Bill Gates, the Steve Jobs, the Mark Zuckerbergs? But I know for myself, until writing this book, I didn't know about Ellen Amtosh, for example, who wrote the first internet search engine, right? We wouldn't have the Google as we know it, and we wouldn't be using the internet as we know it if it wasn't for this genius, really, who created it. So yeah, I wrote the book because I think it's important that we tell stories, we tell the truth, and that we really inspire students, especially those who haven't seen themselves positively represented in the curriculum. I wanted them to see themselves reflected in a positive light, and for them to know that you can overcome the challenges you face, and you too can be an innovator and a trailblazer like the folks in this book.
And I think that's such a main theme that you carry throughout the book when it comes to belonging, right? When it comes to you are important to be seen. Now, something that goes along that same theme is the fact that you were very intentional about the words that you used, the language that you used throughout the whole book. Okay, now this is a 2-parter, okay? Tell us why you were so very intentional about the language you used, okay? And how does this fit in the overall everything that you do as a DEI expert, advocate, and facilitator?
Great question. Language is everything. Language, one of my favorite authors, Bell Hooks, may she rest in peace,
Mm.
said language is the starting point to imagination.
Mm.
And I really agree with that. It's where we form our understanding, how we see the world. And so I was very intentional about how words were used, how they were spelt, the definitions. God bless my editor, David McDonald, shout out to him. And I'm sure he was pulling his hair out because every word, when I say every word, to how we capitalize Black versus a color and Black versus talking about an individual, how we use the word enslavement instead of slavery when we talk about, the ugly part of some Black history. And again, because I believe that language is how we form opinions, how we our imagination and how we see the world. And so that's something that I also apply in my DEI practice. Words are so powerful. They're so powerful. And we can even go into the misrepresentation of words like Black and how that has been used in very negative ways, and how we see folks even reclaiming it now in more positive ways. So language, yes, I don't know how we could have actually a whole other conversation about the process of writing, and it evolved into changing even the style guides of how we write curriculum content. It was really important to me. So it wasn't just this book. This book actually birthed a lot of positive changes as far as working in a DEI lens.
Amazing. One of the common themes with the Trailblazers is that they overcame a lot of challenges. That's been like another common theme, right? Yes. So tell me about a time when you have been able to overcome like a major the challenge throughout writing and authoring this book, right? That you never thought you would even have to face or even speak about. And what did you learn from it?
Yeah, you have the good questions. I think writing for me, the book, it was more in a mindset that I needed to get in. Again, back to what I was saying earlier, not seeing a lot of positive representation of myself, of folks that look like me represented in my curriculum, in my school experience. It really messes with your mind. And for me, I'm going to own my story. For me, it was, do people like me do amazing things? Can they be trailblazers? Can they be leaders of big organizations? And the big challenge for me actually was just in my mind to say that I don't need permission to write these stories. There's a lot of controversy, as I'm sure you and I both know, when it comes to critical race theory and what's being taught in our school curriculum. And again, that's a whole nother conversation. And I just needed to get over the idea the idea that these stories haven't been told. Can I be the one to tell them? And the fact that this is actually going to be in the curriculum, it's actually a tool that will be used in the curriculum, makes me so happy because I never experienced that. So for me, it was just getting over my feeling of not feeling worthy enough to write it, of feeling like, well, is this valuable enough? Is this just something that I want and I feel like I'm missing? So that was a challenge just in my mind. And then the other part, that just the process of writing is very tedious, and I'm very, very protective over my projects and the work I do. And so having other hands on my work, I appreciate it because I do enjoy working with other people and getting their expertise. I worked with so many folks, from historians to professors to archaeologists to subject matter experts in education and DEI and diversity, equity, inclusion. So that was something that really stood out to me in the process. Was I didn't realize how challenging it would be to just actually write it, like figure out what stories I wanted to tell, make it flow, what my theme was, and the resources it took. That's something that I underestimated, the amount of resources it takes to tell these stories, to uncover them, to have a team that supports and backs me. They were backing me up in writing these stories. So I would say those 2 or 3 points: my mind, getting over the mind block, And then the secondly being, the amount of work and resources it took to truly uncover. Some of these stories were actually buried, as far as we don't have photos of them. They didn't have any children. So the amount of resources it took in time, it was over a year and a half, almost 2-year project.
You did like half a dissertation, basically, because
one of the folks I worked with on the book said, Barb, you should write a book about the process of writing this book. And I said, it's on my radar. Yes. So look out, book number 2.
I look forward to that.
Yes.
And I am so happy that you did give yourself the permission to write it.
Yeah.
Right. Because that in itself, that act in itself is a trailblazing move. Right. To allow yourself to know that, you know what, of course I can. Why can't I be the first person to write this?
Yes.
Yeah. So glad you did.
Yeah.
How do you see Trailblazers in Canada evolving? And what do more school boards, other educators, parents, and folks in general need to know or do to better educate and provide this resource to their students, to their kids?
Yes. So a couple things. I actually have started a literacy interactive sessions for students and educators. So I come into schools and I do workshops with them as far as really dissecting the stories, because it is a very short book and it's very high level, and I want folks to read it and be intrigued enough to go and do more research and more digging. So what I've been doing is I've been dissecting these stories with students to, we explore so many themes as far as intersectionality, entrepreneurship, civic engagement. We talk about a lot in this book as far as themes. So one thing that what I'm working on doing and I have been doing is bringing these stories physically into schools as far as having these conversations. And as far as what educators can do, parents can do, get more content like this. So this is part of a series. There's so many other educational books that have diverse stories and perspectives that Pearson has provided. There's a whole curated list. So this is one of many. And I would just encourage educators, teachers, librarians to get it on your bookshelves, get them in the classrooms, because we are so desperately in need of more diverse content in our curriculum that's telling, especially when it comes to social studies and history. It's really, really needed. So that would be something that I would really, really encourage educators, parents, and students alike to dig deep and find this kind of content, because it's out there.
Yeah. So you touched on how educators and parents can like grab this book and like how resourceful it will be for them.
Right.
Tell me what business leaders can learn about when it comes to innovation from your book.
That's a great question. Because as you know, in consulting, I work with a lot of business leaders, and innovation is often top of mind. Now more than ever has innovation become a top priority for businesses, and how services and products and information in general is provided. And for me, I think who better to learn from than people who made some of the biggest breakthrough innovations, right? And we also learn how they successfully build community, how they educate themselves, how they provide safe spaces for the most marginalized. I mean, there's a lot of gems we could take from the Trailblazers in this book. So one of the key takeaways that I think the leaders could take from this book, these Trailblazers really showed how they lead, which was with the mindset of the collective rather than the individual. And I think that is a catalyst. It's been proven that is a catalyst for innovation. We look at folks like Alan Emtage, who I mentioned earlier, who created the first internet search engine. And he didn't really patent it. He didn't really go far with it. We don't know about him because he simply wanted people to have information that was more easily accessible. And a lot of folks said to him, you should patent it. You should do something to ensure. Yeah. And for him, he was like, no, this is about, I'm struggling trying to find information. This needs to be more streamlined. And then we know what the search engine looks like today, how far it's come today. We look at folks like Lucy and Thornton Blackburn, who created the first taxi service company in Toronto. And, they didn't make much money, they couldn't afford to take the horse and carriage transportation to travel to and from work. And at the time, the roads were really muddy and unpaved, and it wasn't a pleasant experience. So they decided, they being Lucy and Thornton, this couple, to create this transportation service company. And when you think about accessibility and equity, that was what drove them to create the service, right? Is the fact that there was transportation, there's a transportation service, but it wasn't accessible for those who were in poverty. It definitely wasn't accessible for Black folks. And from that, from an accessibility lens and equity lens, they created this, what turned into an empire, and they became very, very successful and became leaders in their community and shared their resources with other newcomers. And it just, again, when you think about innovation and you think about leading with a mindset of the collective versus the individual, it truly is a catalyst for, as I said, innovation.
And again, it really speaks on, like you said earlier about this, the type of leader you are, right? When you as the leader who is in this community, depending on the timelines, the fact that you as a leader decide, I'm going to do this, and it's not obviously going to just benefit me, but like you said, the collective, like to think about all the different struggles they were going through, and to still have that mindset. Yeah. Like right now, there are courses and things that folks are, or books that folks are reading to be able to get there, and they were already there, and like that speaks volumes about,
because at the end of the day, what I learned, the theme with all these trailblazers is they didn't wake up and say, I'm going to be a trailblazer, I am going to be a pioneer. It wasn't that. It was there was a need, and they saw an opportunity to fulfill that need, right? They were working in a place of service. And I think that is an important lesson for leaders and people managers to remember, right? That we are to work in service. And when you work in service, I think a lot of good comes out of that. A lot of good.
It's putting others first.
Yeah. And you will always win. You will win. You will win when you consider the collective versus just the individual.
It's like what you put out comes back to you.
There you go. There you go. Boomerang. Boomerang effect. Yeah.
So as someone who supports business with their workforce, what is something that we can take away from your book? You've talked about leadership. You've talked about overcoming challenges. Tell us more of this.
Yeah. So, supporting the workforce, a lot of business leaders, are really doing their best to manage their diverse workforce. And one common theme throughout the stories in this book is the migration of people coming to Canada while building their businesses and careers. And when you look at what's happening today, what trends we are seeing, especially when it comes to newcomers and the labor market, Canada is, and I'm going to read some quick quotes, stats that I found. Canada is betting big on immigration to fill the gap in its economy, which we're anticipating, the baby boomers are leaving the workforce, and it turns out that a lot of Canadians actually aren't having children. So newcomers and immigrants are really going to be filling that gap. That's as far as what the government is saying. And so we're expecting up to about 1.5 million new immigrants in the next few years. About 500,000 every year is what the government is anticipating. And why am I saying all this? Why does it matter? And there's a lot of debate around whether or not Canada has the infrastructure capacity to take on these newcomers. That's another discussion. Point is, they're coming. We're getting an influx of newcomers coming. What does that mean to our organizations, to our businesses, to how we manage and interact with our colleagues and employees when we have an influx of diverse folks from all over the world? And so one thing that I really thought about when I looked at the stories was, seeing the various examples of how these pioneers use their resources to help newcomers and marginalized people start a life in Canada, whether it's from education to equitable employment to voting for effective policies. There's so many examples of how, just even from a basic needs of housing, the Blackburns had so much property and homes that they offered it to newcomers who were just starting their life. Or whether it was helping them not only get secure jobs like Violet King did, but ensuring that they were protected, because Violet King saw a pattern of how specifically Black folks are being treated when it came to employment. So making sure that they were protected, making sure they understood, again, with Mifflin Gibbs, their voting rights and how the structure works. Because as you can imagine, they, a lot of these folks are just coming from slavery, from, escaping enslavement, and to start off a new life. They didn't have the information of how to navigate the systems. So I think for leaders, what they can really, again, take is look at how these trailblazers welcomed and set up these newcomers for success. And like I said, we have a lot of newcomers currently and a lot more now. I believe they said by 2032, it's newcomers, immigrants are expected to account for all the country's population growth. We really have to sit with that and think this diversity talk and inclusion and equity, it's not just for talk. We need to prepare ourselves for the world that we've been living in, but it's only becoming more, right? We're more connected than ever before. So that's my long-winded answer to how businesses can really support their workforce, as far as take a note from the pages in this book of these stories of how folks are doing. Have you heard of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
Yes.
How there's like the basic like shelter, and like I see how the black ones took care of that, and then there's like safety as far as making sure they have employment and whatnot, and then they keep getting into different levels as far as like self-actualization and whatnot. And you see in the book how a lot of these pioneers started with nothing, and they slowly but surely take care of those needs and the needs of others. And it's
the collective.
Back to the collective. Yep.
Back to the collective. It comes back to that.
Yeah.
Tell me, what do you need the most right now to be able to continue being the brilliant, incredible Ms. Barbara Yebuga? Tell me about that.
You're so generous. What I need is, let's continue to do the work. Let's stay connected. I'm all over social media. You can find me on LinkedIn. Find me on my YouTube channel, where I have conversations with Barb, where we have deep dive conversations about whether it's social issues, how to manage diverse workforces, which I do a lot of in my consulting work. So you can find me on there. I also have a storytelling channel, Storytime with Auntie Barb, for my young followers and community students. Young children are a passion of mine, and it's why I wrote the book. It's written for younger students and children. So you can find me on different platforms, Barbara Yebuga, and just stay connected. And it's all about community. Again, we're not going to do this on our own. So let's stay connected, get a copy of the book, share the information with your family, with your friends, with your children's, school librarians, teachers, etc. Yes, that's how they can support, is just stay in community and don't be a stranger. I love engaging with people. I'm a lover of people.
One of my favorite things to always, and I say this, is when we support one another, we grow with one another. And it's one of those underlying ideas and feelings and hopefully actions that I constantly try to apply. And what you have spoken about today and everything you have shared with us really underlines that. Absolutely. My last question for you before we leave is, what is your wish for the book?
Ooh, what is my wish? I have so many wishes. My wish would be that the readers be motivated to do their own research and dig deeper into these stories and the stories of others. Again, it's a very short book, less than 30 pages. And I just wanted to spark interest in folks to find even more stories. And then I want folks to take interest in their own story and telling their own story and telling the story of their lineage and how they ended up on this native land. That's something that I, took from the book, definitely, is how did we all end up on this land? How do we end up here? What is your story? How were you a trailblazer in your community, in your family? And it's not necessarily about being a trailblazer. It's about acting in service, right? So I would really want folks to take that in and to move with the mindset of living and working with the collective in mind. It's really about the collective more now than ever. We need to start moving in that mind space.
Beautiful, friend. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time, for sharing your incredible knowledge with all of us. And I can't wait for folks to go out and get this because, like,
yes, 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 yes.
Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And yeah, please keep like giving us this incredible and sharing this knowledge with us.
Your support means the world to me. I've told you this before, but I mean it. Your support means a lot.
Anytime.
To me. As someone who's been in this space from the moment we met, I told you I'm keeping you, and sorry, not sorry, you can't get rid of me. And now we're here, and don't call HR on me, okay? There's a stalker. I appreciate you. I really do. And the feelings of admiration are definitely mutual. And I'm just, like I said, there's so many resources, not just my book. You've put out a book as well. That I'm just so happy that I found a community of folks that are just as passionate about doing this work and are doing it well.
And again, it's like, it makes like, I'm so happy that we can continue doing this work, to be in a space where we can share that knowledge, right? Yes. Knowledge sharing is so important. And then again, thank you for all of this. And I look forward to the next discussion for your second book.
And the next discussion for your book. Thank you very much. Because I haven't been privied. I know how to be on the other side. I can change from Barbara Yebuga to Barbara Walters. Come on.
I love it.
Come on.
We need a Barbara Yebuga. We need her. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. Well, you let me know. I will gladly interview because I have questions, thoughts. I want to hear all the things. But yes, thank you so much, honey. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you. And let's have our whole community stay connected like this.
Absolutely. Seriously. And having these conversations are great. So let's keep it going. You know what I mean? Whether it's a topic on something, I'm serious. I want to talk about whatever's been going on in your book, what you've learned. Yeah. I think it would be great to have a session specifically about the publishing world and for publishers, authors, writers, and what that looks like and feels like today. There's so many ideas and thoughts, but we have there's good content here.
Let's not go too far. When we can match without even like talking about it pre-hand, I feel like it's a go. Yes, it's a yes. It's a yes for me.
It's a yes for me. Yes. Yeah.
that should be the name of our discussion. It's a yes for me.
It's a yes for me. Yes. Woo! Don't get my juices flowing on this Friday afternoon.
Listen, like brainstorming. I'm all about it.
And you're on it. So I appreciate it. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Like a fantastic. Like that's your homework.
You too, my dear. I'm sure, and I know you've had a long day.
Yes, I know. But it's been great, very fulfilling.
Great. Okay, we'll talk very soon.
Yes, we will.
Take care.
Appreciate you.
Bye.
Bye.